Hey, what's up guys? You got Gypsy back here today with some more tour content. Haven't had much of my own tour content up on the channel recently, but I haven't actually been playing. This is the first tour game that I've played in a long time, so that I've actually played properly in a long time, I guess I should say. I played in week 2 of OUPL, but I got disconnected and I couldn't reconnect due to a glitch in Smog Tours, and as a result my opponent decided to take the DC win instead of recreating, so that was definitely a thing that happened. But yeah, this is, and in week 1 and 2 I was subbed out due to time zone difficulties, but this is the actual first game I am able to play in the OUPL, and the OUPL is the Premier League for OU, pretty similar to SPL for those of you guys who are familiar with it. Basically, the way it works is players sign up to be drafted. If you're lucky enough to be drafted by the teams who have a set budget, then you get to play in this team too, and it's pretty sick. I got drafted by my boy Maddie and Obi. I actually got the first pick. I was like drafted first out of everyone. Kind of ridiculous because you know, my friends had the very first pick, so there was all this like meme hype around me, and because my friends were just talking all this like wild shit. So that was pretty funny. But like I said, this is the first game we've actually going to be able to play properly this tour, so pretty hyped for that. I am facing off against Obliviate. Our team is facing off against the Twin Leaf Thunder, coached by Jirachi and Blunder, or managed by Jirachi and Blunder. So that's, yeah, they've got a team of threats. I think like thus far the week is pretty even, if I'm not mistaken. I think we've won a few, we've lost a few, so I definitely think this match is like it matters. And obviously, like, even if we have like lost or won the week, I still want to win, obviously, for my team. So going with the team we've brought today up against Obliviate, like originally I had built a team with Darius, a good buddy of mine, really good builder. We discussed some options, just looking at what Obliviate favored kind of using in the past. It was a really cool team too. It was a Mega Pidgeot Bantai team that I'm definitely planning on using in the future sometime. But I don't know, in practice, like, I just found it a bit underwhelming. So I was kind of like umming and ahhing about which team I'd use for this tour for a long time. And then Ricardo passed me this really solid Specs Gengar team, which also destroyed my opponent's typical favored defensive cores. As you can see, like, he doesn't really have, like, on this team he has literally no Gengar check. It's like his Shadow Ball switch in is AV Tang. Greninja is not a Specs Gengar answer at all, even though it resists Shadow Ball, it's just not. So yeah, Specs Gengar was pretty solid too, but to be honest, I ended up going with something that I've built myself. A team that, like, it's kind of funky, like, it's pretty fun though. Like, I do like it. It's definitely not the best team in the world, but it's packing some sets that aren't really prepped for currently, and you know, like kind of just working on the Gengar weakness that I found in his cores. I do have the Kofag key, which is actually like a setup nasty plot Ghost EMZ variant, so it kind of fulfills the Gengar role whilst also being a nice check to stuff like Heracross and Medicham. So yeah, just quick rundown on the team, I guess. I have 4 attacks, Mega Mawile, originally was SD, but threw on Firefang to potentially help against Pharaohs, as Pharaoh was, stuff like Pharaoh and Amoonguss was something that he did favor in a lot of his builds. Shout out to Darius as well for like passing me the visual of my opponent, definitely helped in building for this. And then we, like I said, we got Nasty Plot, Trick Room, Z, Kofag. It's actually defensive though, so it doubles as a really nice answer to, you know, the powerhouse megas such as Medicham and Heracross. Also pretty nice for Pinsir too, as it can pain split up and you know, remove its ability. And then we have Scarfed Luddy. Basically, like, the Scarf is unfortunately kind of essential with all the Scarf chomps running around, all the Scarfed, all the, you know, +1 Volcaronas. You kind of need a Scarfer, you kind of do. I'm Scarf T-Wave, so like that's my way of checking Volk, because Scarfed Psyshock isn't gonna kill Volk anywhere from like above 50. So then we have Defensive Roxlando. Specs Keldeo is a really nice mon, mon that I've been trying out recently and just really enjoying. The reason I'm rocking Specs is no one's really prepping for Specs. No one expects Specs. That was a tongue twister. Yeah, Specs Keld is just blasting through teams. Like, yes, a lot of people are running around with Tangs, but with rocks up, spec secret sword to it is like literally from full. It's crazy. My opponent has a Latias here, which is extremely uncommon. You don't see this mon around. Like this kind of looks like it handles my Keldeo pretty well, but you'll see that Keldeo still does work. But yeah, Keld does a lot of work to most of the teams running around. A lot of clefs are around, so like a lot of Fizdef clefs. Hydro Pump just blows it away, and it's just really solid. Pressure Stall a lot as well, as stuff like Amoonguss isn't really seen at the moment. Obviously Toxapex is a pain, but stuff like Morwile, Cofagrigus, Latios can trick it, beat it down with like if it's like an SD Morwile. I changed the setup a bit, but originally it was SD. So yeah, this team is pretty fun. Got AV Tang on the end for just like a nice Grand Sponge, nice switch into stuff like Earthquake from Landorus. Looking at my opponent's team, he's rocking the Heracross, definitely threatening. I do have the Kofag though, so I'm glad I opted to go with this variant of the team, as my other teams that I was thinking of using were quite weak to Heracross, so this is pretty solid to see it. I do have the defensive Landorus plus the Kofag to check it. Latias definitely like annoying, but it is going to be able to switch into Keld, but it's going to be limited. I do think it's probably Healing Wish, which means he can play recklessly with his Heracross early game, which is going to suck. But that's just that. Like it's not like a Latios, which is like far more offensively threatening. So that's pretty nice. Every time we'll be able to check it more reliably. Then Lando probably rocks Lando, and looking at his team and thinking more than likely Bloom Doom Heatran. I don't think he'd be like he could be Zalando. It's kind of hard to tell with Zimas, but I feel like this will be defensive Lando because he is pretty vulnerable to stuff like Pinsir, Chomp, etc. So probably Specs, Gran, and AV Tang. So we're gonna jump into it. I'm gonna lead off with Keldeo. Reason being, it matches up fantastically versus this team. Like if he leads with Heracross, I do have Answer Stat in the back. I can threaten it with a Hydro Pump, as he may just switch, and probably isn't going to go for the close combat versus a Landorus and a Kofag in the back, so he'd likely press like Rock Blast or Pin Missile there, and Keldeo would chew that, get a massive hit off with Hydro Pump, but more likely he's going to lead off with Gren, Landorus, or Heatran. So I can also bluff the fact that I am a potentially a scarfed Keldeo, which could beat his like Specs Greninja lead. I'm probably like Rocks Morwile, or I'm probably Rocks Lando just looking at my team, but I could be Rocks Morwile. Other way, Specs Ninja is a really solid lead versus me. It forces me to go out into Tangrowth if I'd lead something weak to it, which allows him a free switch into Heracross, especially if he's like U-turn, which would suck for me. So I'm not going to allow him to get that like early game momentum. I'm just going to go, lead off with my Keldeo here, which does force him out. I know he's going to switch out here. The only reason he stays in is if he's scarfed and goes for U-turn, but like he has no reason to risk me being like scarfed if he's like a Specs variant. So I know he's going to switch here, more than likely into Tang, knowing that he wants to preserve Latios for. I think he's going to want to preserve health on Latios, just in case he needs to take a hit from my Keldeo later in the game, and Tang's a fairly safe switch in with Regenerator. So I'm going to fire for Toxic. This is going to allow me to get the guaranteed 2-hit KO on Tang with Secret Sword on the switch after I get up rocks later in the game, which is really solid. Like if I can get into that situation, I will really appreciate that toxic residual damage off on this Tangrowth. But I'm going to make the switch out here into my Morwile as he makes the switch himself out into Landorus. Pretty safe play from him, knowing that like I was going to switch there. I'm probably not going to be like anything but a choice lock to Keld, and I wasn't going to double Toxic there, like risking the Giga Drain versus something that just does so much work versus his team. But he's going to go into his Landorus here, get the Intimidate drop off on my Morwile. I'm not trying to stay in here and like lose my Morwile, which really pressures his team. I'm just going to go into my own Landorus here, get up the rocks as we do that nice rock exchange. I'm willing to take this HP Ice because I do have my Kofag in the back to also check the Heracross. It's not like this is my only check to Heracross and like I just let it get half off. This is okay. I can get health up on the Tang, with smart doubles if I can pressure him to remove rocks, or if I remove rocks myself. But to be honest, like I like rocks a lot more than having them not on my side of the field, because Keld just really appreciates rocks in regards to a going Tang and chipping down the laddie. So willing to make that exchange there, as I'm going to switch out here, not trying to take another HPIs and just go into my Keldeo, which forces him back into his Tangrowth or his Latias here. Now I'm going to go for Secret Sword here as he stays in. I really disagree with this play. Like 100% disagree with this play. If he lost his Lando, like stuff like my Morwile was far bigger threat to his team. Yes, he does the Heatran, but if I was Focus Punch, he's forced into a Heatran every time Morwile comes in, and Heatran just gets bopped by the Focus Punch. So I don't agree with that play. I don't know why he made it, but it kind of works out for him here. Had I removed this Lando from the game, like, it would have been significantly easier, but he's going to go for the Earthquake here, getting 35% off on my Keldeo. I'm going to go out to my Tangrowth here as he makes the Earthquake again. He could have expected me to switch out to something like Morwile there on his switch to like Latias, I guess, or even like Heracross. So just wanting to Earthquake again there made sense, I suppose. But either way, we get Tang in here relatively freely, and his Landorus is obviously not going to want to stay in here, so he's going to U-turn out, and he's going to bring out his Heracross. Now I'm going to go for the Earthquake here, just in case he wants to make the aggressive play into Heatran on my Tangrowth. I'm trying to soak up an HP Ice, but Heracross was pretty safe there. I probably wasn't clicking HP Fire, and the fact that I brought Tangrowth in on the Landorus and stayed in on the U-turn meant that I probably had HP Ice, as opposed to just going hard into my own Landorus on the U-turn, which would have forced something like Grenin. So I'm going to go into my Morwile here, just scouting out his Heracross set. Also, if you wanted to make the switch out to Greninja on my Landorus, I would have been able to kill it with Play Rough whilst living a Hydro Pump, because I'm a really bulky Morwile, but he's going to go for the Pin Missile here, as we do get the Intimidate drop off, and it still does a decent, like, it still chips Morwile down, but like, we're still going to be at a pretty solid amount of health. He gets a crit there, which is a little bit annoying, but that's to be expected with Hera's Pin Missiles and stuff. So Morwile is going to fire for Play Rough here, as his Landorus is going to get very whittled. Like, this is what I was talking about earlier, like, had he just let Landorus die to my Keldeo Scald, he wouldn't have had a switch in here, so he would have been forced into his Heatran, which any chip off on Heatran is fantastic for my Scarfed Lati winning late game. So yeah, that's definitely an interesting choice of play. But here I'm just going to go for the Sucker Punch. I think he's going to U-turn, predicting me to switch out here, and if I do stay in and click Sucker Punch, from his perspective, I'm getting Rocky Helmet chips, so I'm like becoming less and less of a switch into Latias. So that's definitely something I thought he would make, and I'm just happy to remove this as one more sack to Keldeo, or one more switch into my Morwile late game. So I'm going to go for Sucker Punch here, as he does let Landorus die, as he's going to be able to bring out his Heatran here, and this is where I'm just going to have to go into Lati here. I don't want my Keldeo taking damage. It will die to a Magma Storm because I took the Earthquake earlier, and Keldeo is just really solid versus this team. I'm going to click Thunder Wave here, just in case he wanted to stay in, which would have meant that my Landorus guaranteed outsped his Heatran and could get an Earthquake off. You know, if that matchup occurred later in the game. Also potentially getting a Para with my versus my Kofag could be really solid, especially if I get a Trick Room up and start nasty plotting. But it also helps out my Tangrowth beat the Heatran. T-waving the fast Heatran is just pretty nice for my team, but he's going to make the switch out into his Tangrowth here. Pretty like safe play by him. I felt like he could stay in there, or he could switch. He was like, it didn't lose me too much momentum, because now I can just go back out into my Cofagrigus as he makes the switch out into his Heracross. Fair play, like, Tangrowth was my switch there, because I didn't, like, I could have either gone into my Morwile there, or my Tangrowth, and either way Heracross covered both those plays, because it got a kill, basically, unless I wanted to bring in my Kofag the next turn. So I make the switch out to my Cofagrigus, predicting him to make the aggressive play there, and this puts me in a solid position where I can just go for the Trick Room. I don't think he's going to go hard into Heatran on the Will-O-Wisp. I go for Trick Room just in case he does decide to stay in and go for sub, because that puts me, if I Will-O-Wisp on his sub, that puts me like really in the back. So I'm just gonna Trick Room turn 1, and then I believe I Pain Split here, just to get myself some health back, as he makes the switch out to Tangrowth. Now he had to switch there because he was in range of going down to an offensive Cofagrigus' Z Shadow Ball, so he would have known that like his Heracross was going to go down there. I actually wasn't offensive Cofagrigus, as I mentioned, I was defensive, but if I had like even a little bit of special attack investment, then his Heracross died there to Z Shadow Ball. So we're going to get the Pain Split off here and get a ton of health back from this Tangrowth. Pretty nice for us because now Pythagoras can check his Heracross more reliably. But I know this Tangrowth can't do much to me. It can like Giga Drain me, but I am out of range of Leaf Storm. And if I get a nasty plot up here, something is going to go down to a Z Shadow Ball. So my Pythagoras is in a pretty good spot. He crits me here with Giga Drain, which is really unfortunate because this is going to put me at a range of health where I can't live anything from his Heracross. Had I not been crit there, he would have been forced to go for Rock Blast versus my Pythagoras, which had a chance to miss. But you know, it happens. So Never Ending Nightmare is going to go off, and it's going to Oko this Greninja, which is really nice. It just blows it back. I'm going to have to sack off my Pythagoras here. Pythagoras is going to be pretty low even without the crits, so it's not the end of the world. It did its job. It took out and heavily pressured one of the biggest threats to his team. One of the biggest threats on his team. You know, pressured the Heracross defensively, forced him to take a few rock switches, and took out Ninja, which really frees up Tangrowth as a way of checking his Heatran and his Latios. So, because I am a Sulfur, so I'm going to bring in my Keldeo here and just click Secret Sword, I should say, as Latios is going to check a decent chunk. Sorry, I clicked Scald this turn, getting mixed up there. Scald was pretty nice because this Latios is pretty healthy at this point in time, so getting a potential burn will allow me to whittle it down. Also, Secret Sword didn't kill Heracross in that range of health, so just in case he wanted to make the aggressive prediction there of me going for something like Icy Wind, Scald, you know, guaranteed the kill there. But I'm going to switch out here, go out into my Tangrowth this turn, as he's going to defog the rocks away. You know, pretty nice for me. Like, I don't have to worry about taking Rocks chip anymore, but I also would like Rocks up if I can, potentially to just whittle down his Heracross every time it comes in the Heatran. But he's going to make the Draco play there, as I am going to Earthquake twice. It was a bit tricky there. Like, he could have switched to Heatran, predicting my Mawile to come in, or his Heracross. I felt as though Heatran was probably more likely because any damage off on this Heracross puts it like closer and closer to going down, and I felt like Heatran was the kind of play he would make. Like, he's shown in his past games to play very aggressively, kind of unnecessarily at times. No shade to my man Obliviate, but like, I've noticed that's a trend. That's something that's been pointed out to me as well by my friends. So, but he chooses to make the smart play into Heracross there, just taking the 11% from Earthquake. Heracross choose that attack. So I'm going to go into my Landers here, get the Intimidate drop off, and this Pin Missile is going to do basically nothing. And with the lefties, we're actually at a range of health after this Pin Missile where we are actually, depending on rolls, we can live this Rock Blast. Even if he's max attack adamant, we have like a very good chance of living it. He needs a mid roll to kill me, so it's like a 50-50 kind of chance. So it's a pretty solid chance of living it, in my opinion. It's definitely you know, not in anyone's favor, one side or the other. But I go for the HP flying here, as he is going to get enough on this Rock Blast to take me out. So unfortunate, but you know, that's can't really like say too much about it. Like, it's all good. I'm going to click Sacred Sword here, as it does a chunk to this Latios. So I feel as though he is likely going to go for the Healing Wish here, eventually bringing back his Tangrowth. But the fact that I have Specs Keld and Scarf Latios means that I can like take it out. I just need to whittle down his Tangrowth to the point where where my Specs Keldeo can put it in range of my Lati's Psyshock. But he's going to make the switch out here to Tangrowth, as I'm going to go out into my own Tangrowth. This turn he's going to go out to Heatran as I get him with the EQ, so I felt as though that turn he would make the aggressive Heatran play. I'd shown that I'd made the Earthquake prediction like 2 or 3 times now, and it hadn't paid off for me. So I felt as though at this point in the game he was going to make that play, kind of unnecessary in a sense. But the reason I say it's like it was unnecessary because he did have the Heracross, but at the same time, like, had I been HP Fire, which kind of makes sense at looking at my team, like, I have Landorus for potential, like, I have like potentially HP Ice Landorus for opposing Zygarde. I have Pythagoras, which choose hits from Zygarde. I have Latios. I have Keldeo, which blows Zygarde back with Specs Hydro Pump. I have this Tangrowth, which knocks off Choice Band, like, which deals with Zygarde pretty well with Giga Drain. So Ferrothorn is also a pretty big threat to my team. Like, it's just an annoyance. It holds Keldeo back from clicking Specs Skull. It prevents my Scarfed Lati from like sweeping, and hidden power fire could make a lot of sense on my Tangrowth, but I don't know if this was his thought process, but right there he could have gone into Heatran just to scout for the hidden power fire, which would have taken out this Heracross at the range of health it was at, but he did make the play into Heatran, and we get in there with the Earthquake, which is really solid because that's one big threat, stopping my Mawile from just putting in work, and stopping, more importantly, my Scuffed Latios from just winning this game. So he's going to bring in his Heracross here. I'm going to sack off my Mawile to this Pin Missile. It's going to actually have to take 2 to take me out because Mawile is really bulky, but this is going to allow me to bring back in my Keldeo to just click Sacred Sword here and get a kill. So if I can just yeah, put the Tangrowth in range of Psyshock, Latios would be looking pretty clean to wrap this up. His own Latias is in range of a Scarf Psyshock due to the damage the Keldeo Secret Sword got off him last time, so he's going to knock there. He made a pretty aggressive play, I want to say, but you know, predicted my Latios to come in there on the Giga Drain, but either way it didn't matter. Had he Giga Drain there, he wouldn't have had enough health to escape dying to Psyshock. This would have died to Psyshock. Like, had he killed Keldeo there, I would have brought in Latios. Click Psyshock, he either lost Tang and literally got swept by Scarf Psyshock, or he would have like gone into sacked off Heracross to Psyshock and then gone back into Tang. I then had my own Tang I could go into and like take that on, like knock off, and then win with Draco Meteor, but he chooses to knock off there, just kind of sped up the result of the game essentially. So he's going to go down there. I'm going to stay in here in Secret Sword just in case he wants to. I stay in here in Secret Sword just in case he wants to Healing Wish off into Heracross, because then I could stay in and press Skull the next turn, putting him in guaranteed range of Psyshock, but he chooses not to. He just takes me out there with the Psyshock, just in case I wasn't a Scarf Thrower and a Latios. He could have killed me with Draco there and won the game with Heracross, but I am Scarfed, so it's not a Speedster there. He'd revealed earlier in the game to be a he'd switched up moves, so he wasn't a Scarf Thrower. So yeah, that's my game versus Obliviate. Hope you guys enjoyed. Definitely a fun one. Like, glad I could get the win for my team. If you guys did enjoy, drop a like, and I'll catch you guys next time.